special guests you see right here. But first, let there be music. And we're back. So happy Sunday, happy day after winning the series from the Orioles. Happy day of taking it all. And so like we always do, let's just start with Spencer's trivia question of the week. And here we go. On September 6, 1995, Baltimore Orioles Hall of Famer Cal Ripken Jr. played his 21-31 game, you know the numbers, breaking New York Yankees great Lou Gehrig's consecutive games streak. What team were the Orioles playing against when Ripken broke Gehrig's record? So I'm going to leave this up here. I already see the baseball history folks that are our guests pondering. Chat, put your guesses down. And as always, we're going to give you the answer towards the end of the show. So, Spencer, thanks as always for the great question. All right. And so now it's time for us to introduce our very special guests. And first, I want to introduce Ryan Woodward. Ryan Woodward is currently the project coordinator for the International Women's Baseball Center. And Ryan's the reason we're here today, because he is the one who created Women in Baseball Week, which has had international reach, and Women in Baseball Week starts next weekend, a week from today. Ryan is also the one that began to develop something that is called the Women's Baseball Heritage Trail. And so this is something that you're all going to want to learn about, those of you that live in the U.S., because it's summer vacation time for a lot of us. If hopefully you're taking some time with the fam, and you're going to want to hear about some of this. Some of these stops that might not be might not be so far from you. And also joining us today is Dr. Kat Williams, who's the CEO of the International Women's Baseball Center, who has recently retired as a professor of women's sports history at Marshall University. But as Kat reminded me, there's no such thing as retirement when you're running International Women's Baseball Center. We're very grateful that Kat's joining us for our segment this morning. And then we have Dr. Leslie Hefe, who is the CEO for International Women's Baseball Center. So we're loaded with the powerhouse of women in baseball advocates this morning, which is such an honor and a pleasure. So Leslie is the author of Sport, a Usual Category of Analysis. And, I'm sorry, that's Kat, I didn't mention your books. I'm going back to Kat for a second. Kat wrote 2 books, The All-American Girls After the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League, and Isabel Lefty Alvarez, The Improbable Life of a Cuban-American Baseball Star, and several articles on the sport. So Leslie herself has edited and written several books about the Negro Leagues and women's baseball. And she's also the chair, because she has all this time in the world with everything she's got going on. She's been the chair of the SABR Women in Baseball Committee since 1995. So this is a stellar panel we have with us this morning, and I want to just get to it. So Ryan, why don't you tell us about how this all came to be? How'd you come up with Women in Baseball Week and this year's theme?
Well, thank you first for having us all here. You all have been supporters of Women in Baseball Week. I know we were talking about this about a year and a half ago, and it's always great to bring new people in. And now here we are the next year for our second year with this. So we really appreciate that. So to set the scene, I joined the IWBC in July of 2016. And this was right before I was moving to Pittsburgh and right before I was going to grad school. And, speaking of not having enough to do, let's add this into the mix. So as a baby board member, in the first year of things, you kind of just like stand off to the side during meetings. Let's figure out how all this is going to work. They were having all kinds of projects going on, and I was just trying to figure out what my role was. And one thing that I kept seeing was that we just need to bring more attention to the larger mission, the greater cause of women and girls playing baseball, and coming up with an idea of how do we do that. That would cost $0, and we were not the most use of our social media at the time. We're still a new organization. We're just now celebrating our 10th anniversary. So 2016, we were literally just off the ground. So I came up with the idea of let's have this sort of focused attention, smaller period. We talk about this stuff every day, but what if we just really made a big deal about it for about a week? So there were, of course, countless meetings of, well, when do we have it and what do we call, is it women in baseball? Is it women's baseball? Is it women and baseball? We we'd had all the meetings about this. And finally, we were just like, just pick a day, just call it something. And it happens, you don't want to plan these things out too much ahead of time, because then what, you're going to be disappointed or whatever. No, you get a good idea, just go with it and see what happens, see who responds to it. So my favorite thing about that first year was I had sent it out to, a lot of different places. The idea was to have people highlight women in baseball beyond the playing field. So we were talking about libraries, we were talking about museums, we were talking about archival collections, and we wanted to highlight more than just players too, umpires, field crews, all caretakers, whatever you want to call it. So the Cincinnati, no, oh my gosh, I said Cincinnati because Kat's here and I feel like I have to, because she's my boss. St. Louis Cardinals were having a...
Never confuse those two, Ryan, ever.
She needs to cut me some slack, because I'm from Kentucky, and when you're from Western Kentucky, you have your Reds and you have your Cardinals. So I'll maintain that's where that comes from. Nevertheless, they were hosting an exhibit in their Hall of Fame and museum on women in baseball. So this is 2017. And so I just emailed them, said, hey, this is going on. Would just love to have you give a shout out about it. So the first day of Women Baseball Week, 2017, the first social media post I saw was from the St. Louis Cardinals, which blew me away, because I was like, okay, this is a bigger deal than I was prepared for. And then it just kind of took off from there. And the real beauty about it, for me at least, has been every year it's something different. The second year we saw a lot more international participation. The Dutch women's national team was posting about it. I had never talked to any of them. I didn't know who I would have talked to at the time. All this was brand new. The third year we got like more podcasts involved. The next year was like a lot more youth teams. And so it's been a cool, very organic thing. That's something we'll probably talk about later. How can people participate? And I always tell them, you need to think of it less as an event and more like a holiday. How you participate is kind of up to you, what you want to do. And people have done all kinds of great things with it. They have fundraised off of it, which is great. They've, funded tournaments and teams, for their teams to travel. There have been exhibits. Actually, when we leave here today, I'm going to go to Rockford University, where our offices are, and help set up at an exhibit we're hosting in Rockford through December. So that's going to be cool. All kinds of stuff. So that's just where it kind of came from. It was just an idea to create awareness, and people have kind of taken it and run with it, which is exactly what we wanted to happen. We're not selling anything to you. This is our event, but it's not our one structured event that you can participate in. No, this is for everybody. And it's taken off, and I love that. As far as theme, we never really thought about theme until maybe like year 3, when more people were getting involved, and they were, I get the general idea, but what's something specific we can really celebrate? And I was like, I don't know, so I had to think about these things. And in general, they've been very, very broad. One year was, I think the very first year we had a theme. It was the future is now, and it was very youth focused on the number of girls teams, which have probably doubled, at least in this country, since our first Women in Baseball Week, if not tripled. I mean, they're everywhere now, and it keeps growing. Baseball for All Nationals just happened in Kentucky, and every year it breaks records for the number of participants in that tournament, which is great. We did. We had the future is now. We had teamwork during the pandemic of just trying to get us all through, whatever challenges we are facing. But this year's is Read Baseball. And Read Baseball to me is just like take it in, celebrate the writers, the libraries, the journalists, everybody who's writing about baseball. Is a great way to learn more about baseball beyond just going to baseball games, right? So actually, as our archivist, Kate Haynes, when I was talking about, I don't know what to do, the theme is this year, and Kate suggested just make it Read Baseball. You talk about Read Baseball all the time. So that'll be the theme this year. And, there's some book drives involved. It just makes sense. And it kind of goes back to our very first year. So I came up with this. I was in library school at the University of Pittsburgh. So our very first year, that's kind of who I targeted. That's who I knew. I was involved with libraries all over Pittsburgh, which is a very library-friendly city, if you don't know. And, hey, can you do a display for Women in Baseball Week? And everyone was like, sure. How easy is that? And the next thing you know, you had 30 libraries participating right off the bat. So that was really nice. And the fact that it's still kind of going, we still have those connections. We still have libraries that participate every year, and they share the kind of common goal. Like, I'm not going to get super political right now, but there are forces out there that don't like the idea of girls playing baseball. That's something we are up against every day, something we are trying to change about the culture. And it's a very similar thing to book challenges that goes on in, especially public and school libraries. So I'm not, going to make a big speech about that, but there are common themes behind both. Girls in baseball need our support. Libraries need our support right now. So what could be a better theme for this year?
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. Just the themes in general, but especially this year's theme, I think it's super important. Not only to get more people involved in women in baseball, but to get people reading. I think with social media now, it's so easy for us to not read a book, to not read the newspaper. So I love this year's theme personally. But Ryan, you also created and you continue to develop the Women's Heritage Trail for baseball. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Happy to. So this is a project a long time in the making. And I always talk about, I feel like Leslie and I were talking about something like this back in like 2016, this idea of, wouldn't it be great if you just had some kind of resource that just told you where everything was related to women in baseball? And initial talks about it was, more the memorial type things that the Heritage Trails become, but also just where is every team located? If I have a 9-year-old daughter and she wants to play on an all-girls team, what's the closest one to me? Or I'm interested in, these throwback vintage baseball programs. Where's the closest one that I can support or get behind? And it hasn't quite turned out that way. We still have those types of resources on our website at iwbc.org. And there are other groups that kind of have taken pieces of that. So I've really focused on the, my own history nerd aspects of what do I want to see. And that's what leads to all of these things, whether it's Women in Baseball Week or the Heritage Trail. It is there are things I would like to see in the world. Nobody is seeming to make what I'm looking for. So I guess I just have to make it myself. And, I've had the support of IWBC to just go with these types of things and their inputs to always make it better. So essentially the Heritage Trail which started, we're right at about 2 years ago, we launched the Heritage Trail. And this is just, it's a mapping project. It's very basic. It's not, there's not a lot that goes into it, but where does women's baseball history happen? Where can you see it? Where can you learn about it? Was the general idea. And then as we were, I don't want to say coming out of the pandemic, but once people were leaving their homes again and things like this, I started to see this more and more online of, I want to get out. I want to do a road trip. I don't want to have to be around people if I don't have to. I was doing this myself in Pittsburgh. I started visiting cemeteries, but I was, finding all these like where Negro League people were buried and different monuments and, history of the Homestead Grays. So I'm like, this is not a hard thing to put together. Mm-hmm. And so that's what it turned into. It was started out with like former ballparks, like maybe where the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League played. Then it became, there are public art pieces about Tony Stone. There are memorial plaques, historic markers. There are museums with permanent exhibits, archives, things like this. And so I just started mapping them out. And I had a goal. This is my most exciting thing that's happened to me this year. But I had a goal at the beginning of the year to get 400 spots on the map by this year. And we just passed 450. And I'm super excited about that. Awesome. This is around the world. So I certainly haven't done this by myself. I've had a lot of great input. We have several spots throughout Asia, in Australia in particular. Canada has a lot of spots. We have a couple in Europe, a couple in South America, and they're there. They're always there. You just haven't really identified them yet and put them on the map. But if you want to talk about East Coast United States or Michigan or Illinois, there are spots all over the place. And so it's been a lot of fun. It's still a work in progress, and but people are using it, and I see that occasionally, on social media or something. Thanks to the Heritage Trail, look what I found. And it might be a filming location for a league of their own, or it might be, it could be a lot of different things, and people are responding to it. So I'm really happy with the progress it's made so far.
Ryan, I have to say that, my husband and I are big road trippers. We rather hop in our car than experience airport drama. And so this is particularly fascinating for me. And this map, which is on the IWBC website, is extraordinarily helpful. And I know our friends in the chat, we have several who are on the East Coast and in the Midwest. In fact, my co-host here is in Chicago, Illinois. So, and so we've been talking about it. So, what can folks expect to see? You mentioned monuments, and but is there information on the website about what each location has, so that if people are planning the road trips, they know?
There is. The map itself still needs some work. I need a better search feature. I need a lot of stuff to go into it because it is very basic. But if you are browsing, I can say, locally or regionally, it's super great. I'm going to be in Chicago this weekend. So what do I need to see? And go to Chicago and then just start clicking on all the pinpoints, and you'll find all kinds of fun stuff. But yeah, I do include a description. I include a website where, it's applicable. I don't have photos for everything. I haven't wanted to use photos that I either didn't have myself or people didn't send to me, with permission. I don't want to just start ripping off photos from the internet. But that's another piece of the project, just to get photos for every single location. But it's been a lot of fun. Now, when we started this, I was in Pittsburgh where they had just filmed the new League of Their Own series. So right away, I was able to put like 20 things on the map, which that made it very nice. But that created a lot of new fans for the show. And that's another thing I've seen on social media. There's just a whole group of people who love that show. And are advocating for new seasons and all this type of things. But like, okay, let's road trip to Pittsburgh. What can we see? And they've got a resource there that they can find, everything that at least I know about. And so it's really cool. I share in your road trip enjoyment, these websites like Roadside America, things like that. I'm always looking for the weird or interesting, goofy thing, or, war memorials, because that's a whole interest of mine, or what is there to see for baseball if I'm going to be in Madison, Wisconsin this weekend, or Indianapolis this weekend.
Yep.
So I do the same exact thing. And this is hopefully helpful for if you're looking for women's baseball material.
Yeah, so next goal is then when you're driving down 95, on the exit where they always say, stop here for the Ava Gardner house, which my husband and I may or may not have done. That it will say, stop here for women's in baseball history. And good to know, Ryan, because I'm maybe 5 hours by car from Pittsburgh, and I loved the series. So thanks for booking my vacation for me.
You're right.
And Kat and Leslie, I wanna bring you in as well, because this all intertwines. We were so lucky to have you back in March to talk about IWBC in particular, but obviously there's complete intertwinement, new word, I am claiming it. Here. So tell us about how you see this going, and also, by the way, Rockford was dropped out of Ryan's mouth. So I know there's some exciting things to talk about in terms of a certain stadium in Rockford.
Well, of course, always a lot of excitement in Rockford. If you've never been to Rockford, you should go just for the excitement of it. So would you like to start, Leslie, in
go ahead, Kat.
about IWBC?
Yeah, feel free.
The International Women's Baseball Center's home is Rockford, Illinois, as you might imagine, the home of the Rockford Peaches. We have been in Rockford since about 2016. We are working toward building a museum, educational center, field house, and we do run Buyer Stadium where the Peaches played. And in fact, we are currently in the process of doing some major renovation for the stadium, building bathrooms. We've recently built an outfield fence, a lot of work that may not sound too sexy, but we're very excited about things like leveling the field, that kind of thing. So we're doing a lot of work at Buyer in hopes of luring some international women's baseball to Rockford. And in terms of the way that the projects that Ryan has started and works on continuously, the way that works, or intertwine. What was your word? The
Intertwinement.
The intertwinement of that with IWBC, I think is it's important to us, and has always been part of our mission, that we preserve and protect all aspects of women's baseball history, but that we also employ that history. And that is to excite people, to get young girls involved. Well, one way to do that is you have this week-long celebration that literally takes place all over the country and in places around the world. That's that kind of get people involved. The Heritage Trail, it's brilliant. I mean, it is really brilliant. I mean, think about all those girls Ryan talked about driving to Kentucky for Baseball for All Nationals. It's my understanding the latest estimate was over 500 girls were there for nationals. A lot of those families are driving back and forth. What better way to make a road trip to a girls' baseball tournament than to use the Heritage Trails, stop off and take in some of this. It's all intertwined because it is about education and empowerment and it is about the physical power of playing the game and being part of the game. So Ryan has done an amazing job of bringing these physical manifestations to light. So I think it's all very exciting and goes a long way in encouraging and demonstrating our goals.
Yeah. Leslie,
Yeah.
anything
I
you
was
want
just
to add in?
I was just gonna. I mean, Kat said it really well. But what Ryan has done is exactly what we wanted to see in terms of letting people understand and realize how much history there is, how much women's baseball, and how involved. Because that's always often a thing that people don't seem to really get. Is that women have a very long history in baseball, involved in all different kinds of ways, and I think that helps when people realize and can draw upon that history to say, no, we're not asking to do something new. We're not asking to do something that hasn't happened before, right? It's always easier when you can draw upon that and say, but look, there's this line, and we're just asking to continue that and to be a part of that and to raise it up to a higher level. And so
Right.
that is exactly what, and that week that coming up here is so much fun to, because every year as it has grown, as Ryan rightly pointed out, right? We see more and more participation. We see new groups, and we learn about groups and people involved that we never knew about. And so it also helps to create a sense of community that I think is important.
Yeah.
Because again, so many, particularly those who are playing, tend to find themselves as the sole isolated person, right? And to realize by going to Baseball for All and the Nationals and things like that, but just realizing that they're not alone and that there is a large community that is there to support whatever your interest happens to be, whether you're an umpire, a player, an owner, just a fan, or a writer, whatever it happens to be. There's something there for everybody, and so both of Ryan's projects absolutely do that, and that is what the International Women's Baseball Center is all about, is those kinds of things. And so that is exactly what we want to see happen.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. And Ciarra, I'm going to turn it to you. I think you wanted to know more about getting to the forefront of the game
Yeah.
internationally.
Yeah, so you guys had mentioned, some international teams. Ryan had brought up Europe and Asia. Can you tell us some things that you've been doing to bring the Women's Baseball Center to the forefront and getting it more involved internationally, and what we can look forward to with that?
One of you want to start, or?
Go ahead, Kat.
Okay. Well, we have, I think, in a number of ways. And one of the things that we've just talked about and just demonstrated is that we are multifaceted. We are not just a museum. We are not just someone putting girls on the field. We are not just a Hall of Fame. Or we really are focused on the importance of bringing together the intersection of the physicality of sport and the power of education and the power of history. And so we've just demonstrated in Ryan's two projects some of the ways we've done that. Using that moving forward, we have contacts and folks involved with us, whether it's teams in Australia, in England, in Japan. We have a number of Latin American countries that we have worked with, that we are in contact with in terms of bringing teams to Bayer to play. There are ways that we connect and bring international baseball into our fold, but it's not like we're trying to bring those teams to the U.S. to form a league, or it's more about this bigger picture. It's more about us, as Leslie said, building a baseball community. There is no home for girls and women in baseball except Rockford, Illinois. There is no home anywhere in the world except Rockford, Illinois, and the International Women's Baseball Center. And we are absolutely dedicated to making sure that every girl, every woman who is involved in any aspect of baseball around the world has a role, has a piece of who the IWBC is. That's how we're bringing international baseball together.
Yeah, and I think part of that is also something as simple as identifying where women's baseball is being played.
Yep.
Because most people don't realize that there's close to 40 countries where women's baseball is being played at varying levels, right? It doesn't, and so some of it is even just that simple because again,
Yep.
every country is different, every part of the world, the support they have or don't have. And so getting to know who these people are and finding out how we can help them. What are their needs, right? Whether it's, do they need help with equipment? Do they need help with, and you fill in the blank. If we can find out what those needs are and can help connect people with, that's part of what we want to be able to do. Again, thinking about that aspect of, there isn't anybody else that's doing that, and so somebody needs to, and so that is the first word of our, it's the International Women's Baseball Center. It's recognizing that baseball is not just a sport that is played in the United States. I mean, quite frankly, if you think about it, the Women's World Cup is a true world experience, unlike Major League Baseball's World Series, right? Which doesn't actually involve the world. The Women's World Cup actually does. And so having that recognition that, at least on the women's side, baseball is something that is played in, like I said, close to 40 countries and probably more than that at lower levels and things like that, than most people are aware of. And so how we can bring that to the forefront and make people aware of that and connect sometimes those teams to one another. Because for a lot of them, the only time for the players in particular that they see one another is at international tournaments, right? And realize that, but there's so much more to women's participation in baseball than just that.
Excellent. And so, Ryan, I'm bringing you back to the fore here. For our listeners, are there any opportunities for getting involved in Women in Baseball Week beyond what you shared earlier, and developing the Heritage Trail and IWBC, even if you don't live in Rockford? So it's for all of you, but starting with you, Ryan.
Sure. So there are two ways to really get to Women in Baseball Week content. Website speaking, our website, iwbc.org. And then we have our own womeninbaseballweek.org website. There where we keep a calendar of events, so people can visit that calendar. And if you see something that's going on close to you, and it really runs the spectrum. Just speaking of Rockford, what's coming up? We have the exhibit I already talked about. There's going to be at Rockford University. There's a musical from a dance studio that's happening at the end of this month during Women in Baseball Week that's based on the Rockford Peaches. There are, of course, exhibits in town to go see. There are book clubs, virtual book clubs that are happening. There are, of course, teams and tournaments. If they are local, they can always use your support. So there are tons of ways to get involved. And as far as participating in the Heritage Trail, we're always looking for new content, right? Or corrected content. If you see something on the trail that's not quite exactly right, or it's not right in the location, you let us know. We want to know these things, and so we can fix them or we can add them. Yesterday in Muskegon, Michigan, at Marsh Field, which is a still active baseball stadium. This is where the Lassies played from 1946 through 1950. They just installed a mural yesterday of Muskegon baseball history that features the Lassies. Now, the field's already on the Heritage Trail, but this will be updated in the description. So there's just constantly these types of things, whether it's, public art, whether it's even a temporary exhibit, whether a tournament's going on somewhere. We're celebrating the 30th anniversary of the first Colorado Silver Bullets team this year. So we have a lot of social media content for that. There's a lot of Silver Bullets locations on the Heritage Trail, despite them not having a permanent home, their first 3 seasons that they played. there are still exhibits places. There are still significant ballparks where they played in. And there are Hall of Fame mentions for a lot of those players, whether it was the college they went to or the hometown where they're from. All of these things are on the trail. So it can be a very interactive thing, and it can be what you do for Women in Baseball Week. Personally, I like watch movies during Women in Baseball Week. Huge amounts of free time. I will always make a post about Kentucky women in baseball, just to share with my friends. And then I always try to learn something new every year, something I didn't know about. And I just checked that off my list yesterday, reading about this woman from West Virginia. Kat, you'll be excited to learn about, she was owning professional baseball teams in like the 1920s. And this was an article that was just written a couple months ago. Of course, I had never heard of her, and reading this thing, and I'm fascinated. And then this, of course, turns into, well, where did she live? What else did she do? Is she in halls of fame? Is she, where is she buried? There's all these types of things that I'm going to look into now. So that's how it works with me. I think that's probably how it works with a lot of people. But yeah, visit the websites, get in touch with us over on social media, and there's a lot of ways to get involved. And honestly, comes back to what Leslie was saying about building community, making sure people don't feel they're alone. Yes, there is I'm a 12-year-old girl who plays baseball and I'm the only one in my town. We need to make sure she doesn't feel alone. But if you're just like nerdily interested in this type of history and stuff like that, you also need to feel like you're not alone. And it's when you go to things like you meet up at ballparks, or you'll go to a Sabre conference or something like that, and you find your people. You come to our virtual conference and you will definitely find your people and make new friends, and you start working on cool projects that you haven't even thought of yet.
And the acronym, Leslie, for Sabre stands for?
Society for American Baseball Research, which also has a women's baseball committee as well that works really closely with the IWBC. In fact, one of the things Ryan just mentioned, of course, is our virtual conference that comes at the end of September, September 20th to 22nd this year. Anybody is a joint project between Sabre and the IWBC, and has been since our first year. And that's always, to Ryan's point, a great way for people to come and learn and meet people. Because, the research that's shared, the panels that come, and then just the opportunities to socialize and meet people is a great way to figure out, sort of, maybe as a starting point, how do I get involved? What are some of the opportunities out there for me? That's a really great way to do that as well. And again, that's September 20th to the 22nd.
We'll be sure to mention that throughout the summer as well.
Right. That is also always international. We have people involved from all around the world.
That's awesome to hear. And I think every time I hear you speak, everything I read in your posts and participating in your groups, there's always something new going on, new to learn, and we're finally starting to see the breakthroughs, some light in the ceiling in pro ball, certainly in college ball. And you are the influencers of that. And so it's been an absolute pleasure to have you with us today. Is there anything you want to leave us with? And by the way, there's no kicking out in baseball. So we're not, this is not the hook off the stage. To the Yankees, fair warning, especially for the Met fan in the panel. We're very inclusive. We welcome other fan bases. Feel free to stick around for the Yankees talk we're pivoting to. But what do you want to leave us with on this topic, if anything?
Well, I would just simply say, if you've got even the remotest interest, or you just want to learn for the first time, be sure to check out next week, Women in Baseball Week. Follow what's happening. You're going to learn something, guaranteed. And I guarantee you're going to find something that you think, wow, that's fascinating. I want to know more. Whether it's, I want to go visit it, I want to go read about it, right? And there's always ways to get involved. And all you have to do is reach out to somebody. There's always ways for people to get involved. And we would welcome anybody, we welcome everybody's participation.
Okay.
I would agree. I would also just like to say that the International Women's Baseball Center is made up of incredibly dedicated, hardworking, wonderful individuals, and Ryan is the cream of that crop. And what he's just described to you, those two projects represent the very best of who we are. And it also represents just the diversity in women's baseball, and that's important to us. And we're very fortunate to have him on our team.
Awesome.
Well, thank you.
No, do not ask for a raise.
Ooh. But I could ask. Just kidding. Well, Ciarra, any last questions or comments?
I just want to say thank you for coming on and teaching us all about Women's in Baseball Week. I'm looking forward to, visiting International Women's Baseball Center in Rockford. I'm about an hour and a half away. I have 2 little girls. They're 6 and 7. They love baseball. So I'm looking forward to bringing them out there and showing them the stadium and the museum and just everything else and, teaching them about it. So thank you so much for all the information.
Thank you.
And look, this gives me the chills. If you read Ken, you're awesome, and so is your granddaughter.
Yes.
Yep, that's cool.
Thank
That's
you.
awesome.
And Ken just gave everyone an example of what they can do. About everything that was talked this morning with our wonderful panel, and so that's it in a nutshell. Thanks for wrapping it up in a bow with that beautiful example. All right, so who wants to talk baseball? The MLB variety. So what I thought I would do, which is a little bit out of sequence, is because we have baseball historians here. I'm gonna put up the trivia question of the week again because I saw Leslie doing this, and so here's the question. Putting it up again. Cal Ripken Jr. broke Gehrig's record for number of consecutive games back in 1995 in Baltimore. What was the team that they were playing against when Ripken broke the record? Any guesses from the panel or the chat before I toss up the answer?
I think I know.
Put in your very educated guess, Leslie.
I think it was the Angels.
Maybe.
I think.
Say
Okay.
San Francisco, but maybe we're just on a West Coast kind of mindset.
Okay, so we got Giants and Angels in the mix, and no guesses from the chat so far. So let me just say, Doctor,
The Angels.
Leslie.
Good
the
job.
then called California Angels.
Yep.
Yep. So
Yep.
that's why you are a professor of sports history, I would say.
That's awesome.
Awesome. And Sean, good guess about the Twins, but not the Midwest, the West Coast this week. Got the nod from Spencer, and Spencer, thanks for the question as always. So let's get to our drill. So it's good to talk about this week, at least the end of this week. We're going to completely bypass Tampa Bay. We are not even going to visit the Tropicana. I don't want to see Lola. I don't want to see the Showgirls. I don't want to talk about the Tropicana. You have to be really old to know that song reference. But think Barry Manilow. We are about to sweep the Orioles, who we have been in the shadow of, God forbid, for a bit. And we are at the very moment, statistically, in second place, but tied. 0 games back. Today we can overtake. So how's everyone feeling about today? And Ciarra, what are you thinking about this series so far?
So this has been the most exciting series since Kansas City, June, 9th, 10th, 11th, because we haven't won a series since then. So going into this series, it was imperative that we took the series because we're about to go into the All-Star break. We're going to have 5 games off, which the Yankees need, right? I've never seen them play this bad in the month of June. It was very hard to watch. But I stayed positive through it all for everybody.
Thank you.
We took the first 2 games, so we are 0.2% back win percentage right now, but tied for first place in the AL East. Right now, the series for this whole season, the Orioles are up on us 5-4. If we sweep today, we are tied 5-5, and then we go home to play them in September. If we take that series, that could be the division. Because let's not forget, the AL East is the toughest division in baseball, regardless of what anyone thinks. And Boston is sneaking up on us right now. They are only about 5.5 games back, which is insane with the start that they had. Friday night started off with a spark. Brandon Hyde tried to fight our dugout, which was insane. Yesterday, nothing crazy happened. Judge and Soto finally went back-to-back, belly-to-belly. Been waiting to see it again for a while. Today, we just need to go out and play baseball and win and sweep. And I cannot wait to see how the game goes. It is starting right now because for whatever reason they're playing at 11:35 Eastern time today. But I just said a lot. I'm very excited for today's game. I just want to sweep and just go into the All-Star break, with a winning record.
I'm gonna take that and I'm gonna add to it that Carlos Rodon, if you're listening, do your job, man. Do your job and keep the game face on. We want to see the Rodon that we saw before this dump of a slump we've been on for weeks and weeks and years, it feels. So we're really looking at you hard, Rodon. And so yeah, and like I always say, we have to manage our expectations. But we have a real chance now to sweep. When have we been able to say that? Like you said, Ciarra, at least since Kansas City. And that's been a minute. And Karen, you ain't kidding. We need this for sure. So we've seen some hot dogs in the field, right? So, Ciarra, who are your hot dogs for the week?
So my hot dogs are going to be, Garrett Cole for that bounce back performance. Coming off that injury, he hasn't been the hottest, but he did his thing the other night. Aaron Judge is the obvious. He's always hot. I don't know anyone who could watch the game of baseball and not be a fan of Aaron Judge. Even if you're not a fan of the New York Yankees, Aaron Judge is the best player on the planet right now. So to not be a fan of Aaron Judge is wild. And then I'm going to say my favorite baseball player, Gleyber Torres, because he is turning the corner. And I know I sound like Aaron Boone right now, so please don't hate me. But after his benching and after his groin injury, he has been consistent. Yesterday, he went 4 for 5. He had a great game, and I just need Yankees fans to give him a chance. Just, let him enjoy his last season in pinstripes. He's turning it around right now.
Yep. And he had put, I think we need to start capturing the historical trend here of how many consecutive weeks Judge has been the hot dog, and sometimes the sole hot dog. And Ken, I actually hope Rodon is listening, because I meant what I said. But yes, we need the good Rodon. We also had actually a little bit of history happened yesterday with Wells's home run, which was the 12th in Yankees history to land on, am I saying this right? Eutaw Street?
Street, yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So, the street right behind the stadium, that's where that ball was launched, and only the 12th Yankee to do it. So, book that for Austin Wells, our catcher, who will be our catcher, our lead catcher with Trevi going to the IL, which we'll talk about.
Shout out to Brendan Hyde for pushing Austin Wells, because that woke him up yesterday. Austin Wells went on a tear, and I give all the credit to Brendan Hyde for putting his hands on him and for igniting that, and shout out to Brendan Hyde for just igniting the Yankees in general yesterday. I think that little scrum, whatever you want to call it, that woke us up. We came out ready to play yesterday.
You're a better woman than me. I'm not going to thank Hyde for nothing, but yeah, it did light fire in the bellies. There is that, and I'm glad there's a little bit of space before they come to our house. But there's no doubt about it. This is the official rivalry. The Red Sox have always been it historically, but
Yeah, but it's been boring lately.
the Astros are there for grievance purposes, with their little asterisk on their trophy. But yeah, definitely. Well, it'll be interesting in our house what happens, because Yankee fans don't forget. And obviously, Kat, Leslie, Ryan, if you want to jump in on anything, say it. Just say it out loud. So Soto, obviously, he's getting on base. Even though some of it has basically been a couple of base on balls, but yesterday that was back to backs, like you mentioned, Ciarra. Made us feel like, okay, we're back, baby. And I have to say that Heel was king of the hill, for the second time in a row now, after a very, very concerning June. So that's the good news there. And I hope whatever he left on the mound comes up through the soles of Rodon sneakers today, or cleats today, I should say. So let's go on to who's in the doghouse. That's a crowded, for me. That's a crowded doghouse, because of some slumps we still got going on. We have Volpe, who still can't figure out what's happening with his mechanics at the plate. And he hit a couple of non-effective dingers, and that didn't go anywhere. But something's going on with his approach at the plate. And I don't know if it's a combination of that and the pitchers having figured him out, and he needs to adjust to what he adjusted. Now he has to readjust. What's your take on that? Do you agree with me? Chat, those in the chat, Ciarra?
So I halfway have Volpe in the doghouse, and I halfway don't, because Volpe's defense is unmatched. He is proving all the haters wrong that Gold Glove, he deserved it. The play he made yesterday, biggest Gleyber Torres fan in the world, he wouldn't have made that play. I don't know if DJ LeMahieu would have made that play. A lot of shortstops wouldn't have made that play. But at the plate, he is really struggling. I was very happy when they made the decision to move him out of the leadoff spot and drop him down to the sixth spot, because that gives him some time to figure it out. I think he's just slumping. I think he's going through a sophomore slump right now, because he came out so hot at the beginning of the season. He hasn't experienced that sophomore slump yet. So I think coming out of the All-Star break, Volpe will turn it around and he'll be okay.
See, this is why we're a team, because the ever optimist and, the one with a little bit of a pessimist lean. Thank you for that. All right. Halfway in the doghouse. I like it. I'm going to move that dog next week, halfway in, halfway out, so we could be more fair about things. And maybe look at a little less sad than what jokes. That's a little bit pejorative of me. But anyway, well, I also have Alex Verdugo in that doghouse for the same reasons. Do you want him half in, half out?
No, he could be all the way in the doghouse, because listen, Verdugo has gotten on my nerves ever since that series in Boston, where the first game he had a great game, probably the best game of his career, and now he is in a career slump. These are the worst numbers he's ever put up, like with the Dodgers, with the Red Sox, with the Yankees. This is the worst he's ever played. But not only is he playing bad at the plate, he's playing bad in the field. So I don't know if he sold his soul to the devil. I don't know, if because it's his walk year and it's finally getting to him. But having to log on Twitter every day and see my Red Sox mutuals post his numbers daily and just how bad he's doing, I'm taking that a little personal. I need Verdugo to figure it out. He needs to go home on this break, spend some time with his wife and kids, fix himself mentally and come back ready to play. Because we cannot have this the second half of the season. With Stanton being out right now, we need Verdugo's bat. So,
yep. And, just overall, get it together, man. You are on a 1 year. You want to be back in those pinstripes. Figure it out now. And I'm kind of a little bit mad, because when somebody has it in them and you've seen it, and it goes away, players, slumps are going to happen. That's not what I'm saying. But this has been, a long one. in particular, and maybe not as long as Volpe. I didn't track the comparison there, but oh, Karen, I was hoping that was for real. I thought that was like a new nickname for Doogie, and I wasn't hating it. He is lacking some balance, and a bit dizzy at the plate. But yeah, he's just all the way in. I'm glad that we align on that. Um, and Ken brought up a point about Volpe. That yeah, and this is a pet peeve of mine: the swinging at the first pitch, willy nilly. Cut it out. Everyone in MLB, it's something that's a pet peeve of mine. You better be damn sure you're connecting at first pitch. It just does not make sense, and even our captain, I get a little bit disgruntled with on that. But that's been Volpe's thing, and maybe because he's so slumped right now and he's just pressing. But start with that. Start with just seeing where that ball is really going. All right, so then let's just go right on down to the next one, and that is down dogs.
Yeah, so we actually have an updated down dog. So Jason Dominguez is actually going to be out for the season. We will not be seeing him.
What?
Yeah, so it turns out he did a little bit more damage to the oblique than they originally thought. So we will not be seeing Jason Dominguez in September. I'm sorry to break that news to all Yankees fans, but with that news coming across, that also ruins my hot take because I was going to say, go ahead, trade Spencer Jones. We have Jason Dominguez. But yeah, so sorry to break everyone's heart. There will be no Dominguez. You guys, we have what we have. When Stanton comes back, we have Stanton, we have Verdugo, Judge, and Grisham, and Soto.
Well, there is crying in baseball. Okay, that took a little wind out of sails. And more recently, in that everyone knows, we lost our quote lead catcher with Trevino going down on the IL and coming back to New York to see the serious doctors. And so I think that is usually the bellwether for more than a 10-day stint. So we need to adjust ourselves for those expectations as well. It does mean more playing time for Austin Wells, which I don't hate. And bringing Narvaez up. We've been rally crying about letting the kids play. And so it's going to be good if they in fact play him, by the way, which we'll get to in our hot takes. But hopefully we'll see Narvaez in action at the detriment to Trevi, who we hope recovers well and fast. So to me, that was my only down dog of recent. The rest are making progress, and the timetables remain the same for Stanton and Poteet and Hamilton. No real changes there that I saw. I saw online or in any of the interviews. So I think those are it for the down dogs. Nurse Karen in the chat, just be on guard. We might need some intervention. So we might have to call the medical team up with the Yankees and give them a talking to, because I am pivoting to, and I'll connect that to our next one, which is going to be this one, our favorite one. Okay, hot takes of the week. Let's hear them, chat. Ken, thanks for giving us the live play update. Thanks for hearing me, Anthony. Eat that chicken parm, my boy. All right. Look at that. Volpe just hit a 2-out double. All right. He's back. Look it. All right. We said it here. Got it here first. Listen, my hot take is about Soto. I do not think Soto should have been playing since that injury to the wrist. It's taking a risk because, although it seems to only hurt him depending on the kind of swing he makes, him doubling over at the plate the other night was not cool. And, just you have the opportunity. We have a riches in the outfield, even with Stanton being out, that we could have floated or brought somebody else up to take care of. He really needed to sit. And to have him play the All-Star game, he should not be. And, I really feel like, yes, we want him there. He deserves to be there. But I'm worried about them being a long-term thing. Yes, I'm being an armchair orthopedist, but, I'm a wrist injury girl, and I'm particularly sensitive to it. Don't ignore it, because it could turn into something, lifelong. Take me as a cautionary tale, Juan, and rethink the All-Star game. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I mean, I'm with you. So I think it's more his hand, because it was like bruised right here when he
Okay.
did that weird slide, when he and Judge did that pickle play last week.
Hmm.
But either way, he grimaced, and it's not a good look for us, and it's not a good look for the Yankees medical staff. They already have, Rizzo's concussion. Look what they did to him. You have all these guys that are already down. So why even take the chance? The All-Star game, and I'm sorry if anybody disagrees with me, it doesn't mean as much now as it used to. You have to have a representative from each team. Um, just let him have the full 5 days off. I get it. He deserves to go. We voted him in. He's one of the best players in baseball. But at the end of the day, I'm more concerned about winning a World Series than Juan Soto representing us at the All-Star game, especially since we don't know if we get Juan Soto back next year, right? Our friends across the pond in Queens are competing for him, and at the
I see you, Leslie.
at the end of the day, we don't know what he's gonna do. He says he's gonna stay in New York, but what does New York mean? There's Queens, there's the Bronx. Like, New York's a big place. So yeah, I don't think he should play at all.
But he's gonna, and and that's the gripe there. So, and I agree with you. It's a lovely tradition, just like old timers day is a lovely tradition. But I think that our culture has moved beyond it anyway. And somebody suggested last night on our live stream. And pardon me for not remembering who. Anyone in the chat, could tell me. Make it just a home run derby. Just do the home run derby. Have that cross league competition thing, and then the 4 days rest for everybody. And pare it back a bit, but still keep that break, because I don't know what I'll do if I don't get to say to people, talk to me after the All-Star break anymore. So, like I've been doing the past few weeks with our numbers lately. But I'm with you 100%. I don't even know if that's a hot take of its own, but yeah, I really think that the All-Star game, especially if they're going to keep the uniforms as tacky as they are this year, if they're going to be tacky like that from now on, I'm sorry. I'm not a Miami hotel. I'm not going to wear one on my head.
But that's the MLB uniforms in general this season. They're so bad. Like, whatever material they use, I don't need to see Carlos Rodon just like dripping in sweat 30 seconds into the game. It's terrible. And could you imagine if our last names were on the back like all these other teams? It looks horrible.
Yeah, and double blend polyester is so 1970s. Like, let's get over this and have the breathable material back. Yeah, but those uniforms, if that was a City Connect uniform, there'd be teams like shamed out of town. So at least we only have to see it for one game. I'd love to know what the numbers are in MLB Shop for those caps and unis. Anyway, I also want to say it's time to sit DJ. That's my other hot take. It's probably a pretty, you pouty facing me.
Yeah.
I think that I think it's like almost, doesn't need to be said. Let's put him in towards the end of the game if somebody needs a rest. Let's have him available on the bench. And you brought Jose Vivas up. Yorbit Vivas up. You're sitting him, and you intend to sit him through this whole series until after the All-Star break. Explain that to me like I'm 4. I just don't get it. When you could be putting him on the infield. Let's see let the kids play. DJ's not producing, he's hurting us. And I just think he needs to sit. Anyone disagree? I don't see any disagree. Oh, Sit it
I
out.
don't
Yep.
disagree. I don't disagree, but his glove is so important in the infield right now with all of the errors between, Torres, Cabrera, and Volpe. It is so important to have a glove like DJ's in the field. And that's where I struggle with it because, yes, he's not producing at the plate. But when you have a ground ball pitcher like Stroman and a ground ball pitcher like Clay Holmes and you're, pitching for you, you need those gold glove guys.
Yes.
And even though Volpe's a gold glove, he still has 8 errors this season. Cabrera has 6. Torres has 12. Our infield defense has been atrocious. We need DJ. Now, when it comes to Jorbit Vivas, I would love to see him play, and I think they brought him up as a precautionary, honestly. I don't know what's going on with JD Davis. I believe it's a phantom IL. I don't believe he has the flu. I think they figured out that it was a bad trade because he has not produced for us whatsoever.
Yeah,
Boone
a
has
stomach
said
flu for a 10-day IL retroactive a few days.
Yeah, that's crazy. What Volpe sat for a day when he had the flu. So I don't think has the flu. But with that being said, Jorbit Vivas, Boone said he'll play after the All-Star break if he does play. So we'll see.
Right. Absolutely. And Ken, I want to say I'm not hating on DJ. I just didn't say a word about Glaber so far. And I agree. I wish like our new adjustment to the doghouse, I could half hot take on DJ because we need him on the field. But he's not the full package. Let's like give him some time off the bench. I mean, Boone is so fond of the naps anyway. Why hasn't he given DJ more naps? Let him sit out a few games. But because we have other people that could fill in there, and we have to face it, Ken. It's hard, but he's 36 years old, and history of injuries, and so we have to start easing out on that. I got a hot take here from Li. Okay, let's get ready for this one.
That's not a hot take. That Li will find a way to trade DJ any day of the week, any minute of the day.
Okay. Okay.
That's a lot.
and Li, this isn't really true because we're currently having lunch, dinner, and breakfast on Aaron Hicks. So what's another 15 mil?
And we ate Josh Donaldson's money too, just to get rid of him.
Exactly. Okay, so I think that takes us to the end, and I know everyone wants to pivot to watching the game. So I just want to remind everybody once again about the info for our friends at Women's for Baseball Week and Women in Baseball Week and the International Women's Baseball Center. Want to thank you again for sticking around and for our time together to talk about these things. And I also want to remind everybody that sharing is caring. Please hit that like button before you leave. And if you haven't subscribed, then I don't see you in the chat, but maybe you're listening. It's that little bell. You click on it and you're a subscriber. And we're so grateful when you do that. So please, as you're listening, take the moment to do that. Leave us comments. We love seeing your comments after the show. I'm hoping to get to that TV. I saw from Cam up above, we scored. So, Ciarra, any last words before we aloha?
The Yankees are up 1-0 right now. We are going for the sweep. I need all of the Baltimore Oriole fans on Twitter to get out of my DMs. The Yankees are the better team. We are taking the AL East back. And thank you to Leslie and Ryan and also to Kat who had to run for joining us today. It was incredible to have you guys on here. So thank you so much.
Thank you guys for having us.
And Leslie, let's connect next week when your guys are in our house.
Yes.
You schooled us in Queens. I hope it works in the reverse in our house. But
well, we're playing pretty hot right now, so
you are playing pretty hot.
I just hope the break doesn't screw that up for us.
Well, apologies in advance that we're not going to be hoping that they go easy on the Mets. But all love.
Absolutely.
So thanks everyone in the chat as always, and for all of you, you know that you always have a reserved seat right here on the upper deck with Ciarra and me every Sunday. So let's get the sweep and go Yankees.